Welcome back. Today's lecture is the last of the lectures focused on market efficiency. I want to talk about catalysts and the role it plays in the overall, essentially, analytical advantage. I'll show you that in a minute. I want to talk a little bit about market efficiency, go back to Fama for a moment. I then want to talk about provide a definition of catalysts, and then show the role they play in the whole process. When we were talking about market efficiency, we really leaned on this structure, this analysis, all based on information. The first was the availability of information. The second was the processing of information. And then the third is acting on the conclusion or outcome of that information, that process. And we said there are really only three ways to get an edge in investing. We're looking for a situation where P does not equal V, price does not equal value. And there are only three ways to get that edge, to create alpha, if you will, to outperform. One is the informational advantage, knowing something the market doesn't know yet, that being the key. You know something, you figured out something, you found something out the market doesn't know yet. And presumably when the market gets that information, P will go to V, the stock will reprice, you'll create alpha, outperform. The second one is taking information that presumably is available to essentially everybody, and then putting it together in a way that's different than everybody else. You're seeing something that the rest of the market, other investors are not seeing, and that's created that analytical advantage. And when everybody else figures out that they were wrong, or I guess in effect you were right, the stock reprices again, you create alpha, outperform. The third is taking information that's available, processing it, maybe in the same way other investors are, but you're willing to trade on that information in a way that other investors are unwilling to trade, or you have access to a trade maybe that other people don't. What I'm going to focus on in this lecture is analytical advantage, with the idea of setting up the situation where a catalyst is involved. What I took in an earlier lecture, I took the three advantages: informational advantage, analytical advantage, and trading advantage, and put them on this wheel. And the idea was that we could then combine them, and I talked about in prior lecture, combining an informational advantage and an analytical advantage. And I talked a little bit about a trading advantage combined with an analytical advantage. And today, effectively, we're going to talk about an informational advantage and a trading advantage and what that looks like. All right, analytical advantage, just going back one more time, is you see something the market does not see yet. That's the key. You take information that's available, maybe some private information. We talked a little bit about the idea of non-material, non-public. That's information you have access to, maybe on your own, maybe other people do or don't have that information. And you're combining that information, the publicly available and the non-material, non-public information, in a way that you come to a conclusion that's different than the market. We're going to go to Steinhart momentarily and talk a little bit about how that gets assembled. And ultimately, you create this analytical advantage. You see something the market doesn't see yet. Stock's mispriced. Presumably now, when the rest of the market figures out that they were wrong, they start to process the information more like you do, then P is going to go to V. You're going to create outperformance, create alpha. I'm going to talk a little bit about that process. All right, and the way we set that up is the information is the puzzle pieces on the left. The analytical advantage is essentially assembling those puzzle pieces faster than the market, and you end up with finishing or completing the puzzle or seeing the results of the puzzle faster than the market. As the rest of other investors, rest of the market starts to do this process, they catch up to you effectively, right? You've seen this before they have, and then P then goes to V. That's kind of the key. Now, last lecture, I talked a little bit about Michael Steinhart, his big insight in the 70s, which he calls a variant perception. And he went on to say, one of the few sure ways to make money in the market is to have a view that's off consensus. We now call that non-consensus, and have that view turn out to be right. We talked a little bit about that. You have to be non-consensus and right. We then went into a bit more of an explanation of what that variant perception is. And the key here is a well-founded view that was meaningfully different than market consensus. And part of that was understanding market expectations and why they're wrong. And I really do believe that's a really important insight that Steinhart offers, because if you can't understand investor expectations and then be able to articulate why they're wrong, maybe they're not wrong. Maybe the stock's not mispriced. So I tend to think of this as all connected, a well-founded view that was meaningfully different from market consensus. That's that non-consensus view. That's that analytical advantage. But then I think big part of that is understanding why other investors are wrong. And that's sort of critical. So we broke this down into 4 key pieces, which is, right, a perspective that is meaningfully different, but the perspective is more accurate. That's the right part, right? It's different, non-consensus, but also right. And then you understand why expectations are wrong, why other investors have mispriced the stock. And I think you've got to be able to answer that question. That's really important. And then the final one is you have confidence the market will reprice the stock. That's where I really want to leap off today. Why will the market reprice the stock? That's where catalysts come into play. All right, so confidence, that's the key. You have confidence the market will reprice the stock. That's effectively a catalyst. All right, now I walked you through how analytical advantages get realized. All right, what's that mechanism where P goes to V? So number one, give this to Steinhart. You see the situation differently than other investors. You have a non-consensus view, right? I will call that an analytical advantage, fine. As time passes, key, and events unfold, we're going to come back to both those, other investors begin to see what you saw originally, and their perception begins to change towards yours, right? You've got there early. Everybody else is catching up. As they catch up, they're starting to realize their initial view was incorrect. Now, your original non-consensus view of the stock's true value, that's V, right? P equal V, is increasingly accepted as being correct. Now, they're not really saying your view is correct. They're just having to say that view is correct. They're not assigning it to you. You just happen to be there early, which is good. So then what happens is that view becomes the new consensus view. Naturally, the stock price will converge to your estimate of value. You will outperform the market and generate alpha. That's effectively how an analytical advantage gets realized into performance. That's the key. Now, let's just jump into catalysts. All right, I call a hard catalyst effectively an informational advantage combined with a trading advantage. You have this information you believe is different than the market, and the trading advantage is you're willing to trade on it because you think there will be an event of some kind, explain that momentarily, that will converge P to V. All right, let's dive in. All right, so that's what the game is we're trying to play. Blue is value. That's your estimate of value. Price is the orange color. And ultimately, we want price to go to value. That's how we create performance. All right, so a catalyst is anything that closes that gap. It's an event of some kind that says to the world that price is less than value. And once that event unfolds, new information, new insight, starts to permeate through the market, everyone wakes up and says, oh, wait a minute, price is wrong, our estimate of value is incorrect, and it starts to converge to your estimate of value, and that's what creates stock performance. And if that's done in a timely fashion or there's a big enough gap, it creates alpha and you outperform. All right, so let's talk a little bit about catalysts, what that is. Now, the word catalyst originally comes from chemistry, and it refers to a substance that increases the rate of a chemical reaction. That's the definition. So if we apply that term to investing, we would get that a catalyst is something that accelerates the convergence between price and value. Now, I'm going to deviate from this definition momentarily for just a bit because I want to be more inclusive of P equal V. But a catalyst would be something, an event, information, new insight, that would accelerate the convergence between price and value. That's the key to catalyst applied to the investment world. All right, so the catalyst is, I'm going to give you the definition, is an event of some kind that increases the availability of information. Informational announcement of some kind. Company announces it, competitor announces it, there's a macro announcement of some kind. A new customer gets announced, new product gets announced, something like that. And effectively, that restores the informational efficiency because you had an informational advantage. Once that information becomes widely held, people get that information, it should restore that informational inefficiency. The informational advantage you had goes away. But as it does that, it's going to reprice the stock. Or it resets the crowd's estimate of value, which is effectively restores the analytical efficiency. You had an analytical advantage. You had a variant perception that was different, meaningfully, as Steinhart would say, meaningfully different than everybody else, all other investors. You see more value than the market does. Well, once there's an event and it starts to inform the crowd that their original estimate of value is incorrect, they should, it happens fairly often, is they will start to reset their estimate of value. Their new estimate of value will start to converge on your estimate of value. Stock will outperform, the stock will go up and potentially create alpha for you. So that would be number two. First one effectively is an informational event. The second is something that forces investors to realize their original estimate of value was incorrect. Or the third is it's some event that removes any trading limitations. It effectively restores trading efficiency, often liquidity, or in the case of you're willing to trade when other people aren't willing to trade, then that obstacle, that barrier, that concern gets lifted. All right. Now, catalyst informs the crowd that their consensus view is incorrect, right? Whether it's information, analytical, or trading in some kind. The crowd wakes up and says, wow, our consensus view is incorrect, and it starts to reprice the stock. Now, a catalyst can be new information the market does not have. That was that first increased availability of information. Can be an event that forces investors to restore their estimate of value. Or it can be a change that increases investors' ability to express their estimate of value by trading the stock. So those are effectively the way a catalyst works as it goes through the market. And the key is, at the end, is a catalyst removes the inefficiency in the market, whether it's information, analytical, or trading in the stock price. So catalyst is that event that essentially removes the inefficiency. It's the event that points out your advantage, right? Information related to your informational advantage, new processing of information related to your analytical advantage, or restores the ability to trade relative to your trading advantage. That's the key. So a catalyst effectively removes that inefficiency. It brings efficiency back to the market. When we started market efficiency, I said, kind of a contentious topic, but you want to buy a stock when it is inefficiently priced, and then you're going to sell it when that efficiency returns. And a catalyst can be thought of that process. That's what really brings back to that market efficiency. All right, this is my own definition. It's a little different than other people on Wall Street. Break catalysts into two types, hard catalysts and soft catalysts. Now, technically, for a catalyst, as we defined it, which is something that accelerates the convergence price to value, that's hard catalysts. Those are hard catalysts. Those are specific events or piece of information, announcement of some kind that accelerates P going to V. I like to include a second type of catalyst, which we call a soft catalyst, which is the passage of time, which is often management execution. Management just executes better than investors think they will. That's really the passage of time. Or they execute better than expectations priced into the stock, if you want to be a bit more technical. Or another way is just there's a lot of uncertainty related to the company's future, management's ability to execute, new product launch. And as time goes on, as that uncertainty gets reduced, what you see is effectively the price converges to value. The price will outperform expectations. So I think of hard and soft catalysts. Technically, as the way they're defined, it really is hard catalyst, very specific event or a piece of information. But I like to include soft catalysts because that helps explain why stocks outperform over time. All right, so to have an analytical advantage, investor needs a variant perspective, right? Which is a view that's different and correct. And then I'm hoping what you saw today is a confidence that that price will converge to value in a timely, in a short enough time to create performance. And it's that convergence of price to value that's effectively a catalyst. All right, thanks for listening.